So, the most common objection that I've heard, you've heard, everyone who's ever taken a sales call has heard, is I need to think about it. And so today, I want to talk to you about why that objection comes up, some of the misunderstandings I think people have behind that objection and other objections. And I also want to give you a slightly more spiritual explanation as to why you're getting objections and low quality prospects in the first place. So purely for context, my name is Ethan Golding, in case you don't know who I am. I've spent, say, the last 4 or 5 years in the online sales and marketing client acquisition space. And specifically over the last 3 years, I've made over $1 million online. I'm shifting uncomfortably in my chair because I got in a motorbike accident 2 days ago and I had to get some stitches in my knee, which is why I'm sitting kind of funny and the camera position isn't perfect, but we move. And I make these videos and similar content on my LinkedIn and my school community because it feels aligned to learn things and share things, and I enjoy it. So the objection, I need to think about it. Also for context, I've taken over 1,000 sales calls at this point. I've trained closers on taking sales calls on my behalf, and I've worked with 300 clients, some of which I trained to take sales calls and close clients. So I've got a multitude of experience taking my own calls, but also helping other people close as well. That objection, I need to think about it, isn't really an objection. When someone says they need to think about it, what they're actually saying is, I have a reason that I don't want to buy your thing, but I don't want to say what the reason is that I don't want to buy your thing. So instead of saying the reason, I'm just going to say, I need to think about it, because it gets me off the call. I don't have to be honest about how I'm actually feeling. So first and foremost, I need to think about it isn't an objection. It's a mask people are putting up to avoid saying the thing they actually want to say. To understand how to get past that objection, or at least how I think about getting past that mask people put up, I think first it's useful to answer the question, what actually is sales? Because whenever I ask that question, people often give different answers. People will say things like, it's just showing up consistently, sales is trying to help people, it's being persistent. Everyone has their own definition. Well, my definition of sales is the process of building trust. It's getting a person to go from, I don't know who you are, to I trust you enough so that when you say you can solve my problem and do this thing if I give you X amount of money, I go, I trust this person enough to say yes. That's to me what sales is. Then that leads to the next question of, well, if sales are the process of building trust, how do I build trust with people? And in my experience, I got this from the first guy that ever taught me sales, and I've used it the whole time since. In my experience, the only way you can build trust with a prospect is by asking questions, specifically in the context of a sales call. Obviously, outside of the sales call, you can put content out and you can send them content in advance to build trust. But within the context of a sales call, the only way you can build trust is by asking questions. I'm going to give you an example that I've given many of my clients to kind of hit this point home. I've got something wrong with my knee, right? It's actually perfect because I just went to the hospital 2 days ago. I've got something wrong with my knee. So I walk into the hospital and they can see me limping. But if from down the end of the corridor, before he's even looked at my knee, a doctor shouts to me, you need stitches, I'd be skeptical of that doctor's diagnosis because I'm in Bali. I don't trust the healthcare system here in the same way that I would in the UK. I was already a little skeptical going to the hospital because it wasn't to the standards that I'm used to from the country that I'm from. I wouldn't trust that doctor's diagnosis if he just immediately shouted at me, you need stitches. However, if that exact same doctor came up to me and said, oh my God, what happened? And I explained to him. He was like, oh damn, how are you finding walking? And I explained that to him. He was like, all right, and did you feel this immediately afterwards? Was there any sharp pain, or has the pain kind of increased over time? What happens when you move your leg at a certain angle? If he asked me a bunch of questions to work out what was going on, and then gave the exact same diagnosis, which is you need stitches, I'd believe him. I'd be more likely to trust his diagnosis and go along with it, which is actually what he did. The only difference is he asked me questions. And those questions, one, showed that he is an expert. Because if he wasn't an expert, he wouldn't have known to ask the question about, has the pain been slowly increasing on the hour since the accident? Only a doctor would ask that question. And two, when I answered the questions, he went, okay, I understand. And he got his little clipboard out and he wrote some stuff, and it made me feel understood. So sales is the process of building trust. We build trust by asking questions because, one, they show that you must be an expert. you know what you're talking about. And two, if you listen to the answers to the questions, they make the person feel understood, and that the diagnosis you're going to give them is actually tailored to them and not just a random thing that you're trying to sell to every person. So how does this relate to the objection, I need to think about it? When people say, I need to think about it, in my experience, what they're actually saying is, I don't trust you enough to tell you what I'm thinking, because you're just going to keep trying to sell me some shit that isn't right for me. So instead of me trying to tell you what I'm thinking, I'm just going to pretend I need to think about it at my own time so I can get others cool because I don't trust you. So the way you get around the I need to think about it objection is actually not have the objection come up in the first place. To have built enough trust prior to the moment where you pitch someone that they'd be honest with you about why they wouldn't want to do something. If you actually want the objection handle for how I need to think about it, you've probably seen this in 100 little Instagram videos already. You say to the person, okay, cool, completely understand that. Like, it's normal for someone in a situation to want to consider things over before you make such a big decision. Just so we're on the same page, I want to make sure that you've got all the information you need so that you can think about it. What do you actually want to process? Like, what is it about the thing that is coming up that you want to think about? Is it maybe the price and you're not sure if the investment is worth it? Is it the actual process I'm going to take you through? Or is it something else? You know, that's roughly the objection handle for think about it. And I'm sure some sales guru in the comments is going to say that that was shit and he changed the tonality or something, but you get the point. That's how you handle the objection. But really the issue isn't the objection. The issue is, why is that coming up in the first place? And it's coming up because we haven't built sufficient trust. So that's the businessy, sales, tactical explanation for why that objection comes up and how to handle it. But I want to give you a more useful one. Probably, maybe one you haven't heard before. At least I haven't heard anyone give it to me, but I've kind of linked the area of business and spirituality together to explain why people don't trust us on calls. I'm going to talk to you about a closer that I hired. He was a very skilled closer. He would have said that objection handle a lot better than me. He understood sales a lot better than me. He'd had training in sales. He'd had experience knocking on doors. He was a better salesperson than I was. And yet, he was never able to consistently close as well as I was able to close. Now, that could be for things because I'm the founder and he's not. There's other tactical things at play. But I believe, my observation of him was that that closer was acting from a place that made people not trust him. He felt untrustworthy. And I got that feedback from prospects after I spoke to them, after my closer had spoken to them. And when I eventually built trust with them, they admitted that they didn't trust the closer. They didn't get a good feeling about him. Now, I know that closer well. He's still my friend. We're still in touch. He's a good person and hasn't done any wrong. I'm just using him as an example, which is why I'm not saying his name. But in my opinion, that closer is acting from some level of consciousness that is aligned with fear, that is aligned with shame, sometimes aligned with anger, but things that I would describe as lower levels of consciousness. Because he's young and he's working shit out. And when I was that age, I was also acting from those places too. And he's got loads of time and he's going to be super successful and he's a really great guy. But objectively, when he got on those calls, when he worked in the business, when he was a part of my team, he had many amazing qualities and there's a reason that I hired him. But the place from which he acted was those sorts of levels of consciousness. And when you're acting from a place of fear, when inside you is fear, the way that fear is communicated, the way that fear is expressed, means that you're a little bit too needy on a sales call. You're a little bit too pushy. You don't come from a place of, I don't need you to buy this thing, I just want you to help you. And you come from a place of, I really need you to buy this thing to fix the fear that I'm feeling inside. And I think prospects could smell that, they could feel it, and it came across as them not trusting him. When he was acting from a place of anger, he was too aggressive, too harsh. And sometimes there's context on a sales call where it is useful to go to a prospect and say, hey, you know, I'm going to say it to you straight because I want to help you. But if you do that, it works when it comes from a place of love. It works when it comes from a place of joy and compassion and intellect, not when it comes from a place of anger, which is often where his would come from. And so those are just two examples of lower levels of consciousness that I think he was acting out of. One was fear, one was anger. There may be others in there too. And it just meant that prospects weren't trusting him. Now I'm going to flip it to my experience on sales calls, which is I don't have as good sales call training as him. And I'm definitely not as good a salesperson as him. But I think more naturally, partly because I'm the founder, partly because I built the thing, partly because I chose the customer, partly just my personality and the way I make all this content for free, and I don't really have any intention of making any money off it. It feels aligned to do. I more naturally on sales calls act out of a place of love, and act out of a place of compassion, and act out of a place of intellect, and act out of a place of acceptance. And those are higher levels of consciousness. If any of you have read Power versus Force by David R. Hawkins, you'll recognize the language I'm using. But basically, there are levels of consciousness all around us, different energy fields. And at any one point, we tune into that level of consciousness, tune into that energy field, and we begin to express it. And the lower ones, like fear and anger, expressed on sales calls, mean that people don't trust us, people don't like us, they just get a bad feeling about us, trust isn't built and they don't close. And the higher ones, in the context of the sales call, feel that even if your objection handle wasn't great, and you didn't super clearly explain the offer, and sometimes they don't quite get it or quite feel understood, because your expression is coming from a place of love and joy and higher levels of consciousness, despite the technical skills not being as good, people feel like they trust you and they feel understood by you. And so in their mind, they kind of go, maybe I don't 100% get it, but I get a good feeling about this guy. I feel like I can trust this person to help me. So 2 reasons why I think about it is coming up. One is that we're not building enough trust prior to pitching them on the call. We're not asking good enough questions that show I know what I'm talking about and I'm really trying to understand and help you specifically, not just sell you some shit. And 2, even if we are asking really good questions, the place it is coming from is a level of consciousness, a way of being that is pushing people away. It's coming from a place of fear or anger or shame or guilt or apathy or sadness or whatever it is. And it's making people feel like we can't be trusted. And if instead we got on those calls and we came from a place of, I just want to help people, I love helping people, I'm going to use my intellect and my ideas to try and show people a better way, I'm here to serve. Even without as good sales skills, I find that we get a much, much better response from prospects and we're much more likely to close. So I hope that was helpful to you. Please subscribe if you'd like to listen to me say more things that are also helpful to you.